In the heart of the Middle East, a conflict rages with roots buried deep in the sands of time, the Israel-Gaza conflict. To understand the depth of this conflict, we must journey back, traversing decades of history. It all began in the aftermath of the Second World War, when the United Nations approved the partitioning of Palestine into two states, one Jewish, the other Arab. This led to the creation of Israel in 1948, a momentous event that was met with jubilation by some but despair by others. The creation of this new state resulted in the displacement of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians from their homes, a tragic event known as the Nakba, or catastrophe in Arabic. This displacement was not without resistance, and the region was soon engulfed in a war between the newly formed Israel and its Arab neighbors. Now, let's introduce the key players. On one side we have Israel, a small yet powerful state established as a homeland for Jewish people. On the other side we have Palestine, made up of the West Bank, East Jerusalem and the Gaza Strip, home to millions of Palestinians who have lived there for generations. Moving forward to 1967, another war broke out, known as the Six-Day War. Israel, fearing an imminent attack from its neighbors, launched a preemptive strike. By the end of this brief yet brutal war, Israel had seized control of the Gaza Strip and the West Bank, further exacerbating tensions between Israelis and Palestinians. And thus the stage was set for a conflict that would span decades, shaping the lives of millions. This is a story of two peoples bound by a shared history and divided by a bitter conflict. As we delve deeper into the Israel-Gaza conflict in the following scenes, remember this backdrop of history as it is essential to understanding the complexities of the present situation. As the dust settled on the wars of 1948 and 1967, the conflict evolved, giving birth to the Intifadas. These were massive Palestinian uprisings against Israeli rule, the first of which erupted in the late 1980s, and the second, at the dawn of the new millennium. The first Intifada was marked by widespread civil disobedience, strikes, boycotts, and protests. It wasn't just a military struggle, it was a social and political one as well. It was a fight for self-determination, a fight for recognition. What led to this uprising? A simmering discontent, decades of perceived injustice, and a longing for a homeland. During this time, images of stone-throwing Palestinian youth facing off against Israeli soldiers became an enduring symbol of the struggle. As we move into the 21st century, we see the Second Intifada, a period of intensified Israeli-Palestinian violence. Unlike the first, this uprising was less spontaneous and more militarized. It was marked by horrific suicide bombings and brutal military operations. The catalyst? Many point to the failed peace process and increasing Israeli settlements. The Intifadas had a profound impact on the Israel-Palestine relationship. The violence, the loss, the fear, it all further deepened the divide. It increased the mistrust and hostility on both sides. For Palestinians, the Intifadas were seen as heroic resistances. For Israelis, they were periods of relentless terror. Each side perceived the other as the aggressor, as the villain. But it wasn't just about changing perceptions. The Intifadas also reshaped the political landscape. They gave rise to more radical factions, further complicating peace efforts. They led to a shift in power dynamics, with the Palestinian Authority gaining more prominence. The Intifadas left a lasting mark on the region, further fueling the animosity between Israel and Palestine. They became a testament to the unresolved tensions, to the complexities of this protracted conflict. They were, and still are, reminders of a struggle that continues to this day. The new millennium brought with it a new wave of violence centered around the Gaza Strip. This small, densely populated piece of land bordered by Egypt and Israel became a hotbed of conflict and strife. As the years rolled on, the Gaza Strip witnessed an escalation in violence like never before. The center of this turmoil was the rise of Hamas, a Palestinian Sunni Islamic fundamentalist group. Formed in the late 1980s, Hamas gained significant power in the early 2000s, following Israel's unilateral withdrawal from the Gaza Strip in 2005. This shift in power dynamics led to an increase in attacks on Israel. Hamas, along with other militant groups, launched rockets into Israeli territory, causing widespread fear and chaos. The rockets, often crude and unpredictable, were nonetheless deadly. They brought terror to the lives of Israeli civilians, disrupting daily life and forcing people to live with the constant threat of violence. The rockets from Gaza varied in range and payload, but their primary purpose was clear: to instill fear and cause destruction. They targeted residential areas, schools, and other civilian structures, turning ordinary places into scenes of devastation. The unpredictability of these attacks added to the fear, as no one knew where or when the next rocket might strike. The impact of these attacks went beyond the physical damage. The psychological toll on Israeli civilians was immense. Imagine living with the constant fear of a rocket landing on your home, your school, your place of work. This was the reality for many Israelis during this period. The attacks were not just a military strategy, they were a psychological weapon, designed to create a state of perpetual fear and uncertainty, and they were effective. The constant threat of rocket attacks forced Israel to invest heavily in defense systems and led to a significant shift in the country's military and political strategies. The attacks from Gaza brought a new level of fear and uncertainty to Israel, prompting a strong response. This new era of violence marked a turning point in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, setting the stage for the events that were yet to come. In the face of ongoing attacks, Israel was forced to respond. The Israeli government, aiming to protect its citizens, implemented a series of measures that were both defensive and offensive in nature. One of the primary defensive measures was the blockade of the Gaza Strip. Initiated in 2007, the blockade was set in place to prevent the smuggling of weapons into Gaza, which could potentially be used against Israel. This blockade involved strict control over the movement of goods and people into and out of Gaza, essentially isolating the region from the rest of the world. In addition to the blockade, Israel also launched numerous military operations in response to rocket attacks from Gaza. These operations, with names like Operation Cast Lead and Operation Protective Edge, were aimed at dismantling the military infrastructure of Hamas, the governing authority of the Gaza Strip. Israel's military might, combined with its advanced technology, allowed it to target specific sites aiming to minimize civilian casualties. However, despite the precision of these operations, Palestinian civilians in Gaza were significantly impacted. The blockade and military operations resulted in a dire humanitarian situation. The restrictions on movement led to shortages of basic necessities like food, water, and medical supplies. Infrastructure was heavily damaged, leaving many without access to electricity or clean water. The civilian death toll was also high, stirring international outcry. The impact on the civilian population in Gaza has been a contentious point in discussions about Israel's response. Critics argue that the measures have been excessively harsh, causing unnecessary suffering among innocent people. Supporters, on the other hand, maintain that Israel has the right to defend itself, and that the measures are necessary to ensure the safety of its citizens. Israel's response has been a source of international debate, further complicating the ongoing conflict. As the situation continues to evolve, the question remains, how can peace be achieved in a region marked by such deep-seated tension and conflict? Today, the Israel-Gaza conflict continues to simmer, a volatile mix of politics, religion, and history. A confluence of diverse narratives and beliefs, it's a tapestry woven with threads of deep-seated resentment and yearning for peace. In recent times, the situation has seen an escalation, with bouts of violence and ceasefires forming an unsettling rhythm. The Gaza Strip, home to nearly 2 million Palestinians, remains under a blockade imposed by Israel and Egypt. This blockade, aimed at preventing the flow of weapons to Hamas, has had a profound impact on the region's economy and the daily lives of its inhabitants. On the other side, Israeli civilians live under the constant threat of rocket attacks. The Iron Dome missile defense system, while effective, cannot guarantee absolute safety. The psychological toll on the population is immeasurable, fostering fear and resentment. Attempts to broker peace have been numerous, each with its own set of challenges. The two-state solution, once the cornerstone of peace talks, is now seen by many as unattainable due to the geographical and political complexities involved. Other proposed solutions, such as the one-state solution or the confederation model, face similar hurdles. The one-state solution in particular raises questions about the preservation of Israel's Jewish character and the rights of Palestinians. The confederation model, on the other hand, requires a level of cooperation and trust that currently seems out of reach. In this cauldron of conflict, the voices of ordinary people often get lost. Yet, it's these voices that hold the key to understanding the human cost of the conflict. Stories of families torn apart, of children growing up amidst violence, and of resilient communities striving to build a better future, offer a glimpse into the reality on the ground. The Israel-Gaza conflict is a complex and deeply rooted issue with no easy solutions. As we move forward, it is crucial that we strive for understanding and peace in this troubled region.
Subscribe for more videos like this. Turn on notification and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.